the Michigan channel, Mark had posted something on the Michigan channel, but essentially it was just saying for Michigan, do you think that they will be better or worse in 2022 than they were in 2021? I think it's a good question, and I do think it's probably a little premature just because, spring ball is going to wrap up. You're going to have more guys in the transfer portal. Not saying they will be leaving Michigan, but potentially coming to Michigan. And then summertime and camp, and things aren't ironed out just yet with depth charts, things like that. But just based off of what we know now, what would be your initial thought on if Michigan will be better in 2022 than they were in 2021?
That's a tough question because I think best case scenario for this team, and I'm not going to dance around the question. Like I know sometimes I can do that. But I think it's a tough question because I think the best case scenario for Michigan would be that instead of last year where their biggest strength was their defense, this year they can possibly have the same results, but by fully utilizing their offense and their offense being their strength. So, and I think their offense has the capabilities and the personnel to do that. However, the loss of an Aiden Hutchinson, um, a Josh Ross, two local kids who were long tenured kids in your program, fantastic leaders, not just good leaders, fantastic leaders. I do think that that's very hard to replace in one season. Um, you can't teach that experience, right? Um, Kids have got to go through that and then learn from it. So, because and granted, you have kids coming back like Donovan Edwards. You do have Ronnie Bell uh, coming back from an ACL injury. So I'm not saying that this team is devoid of veterans entirely, but I think that what made last year special was that we had special leadership. I think that was the number one thing. And I'm not so sure I can definitively say we have special leadership going into this season. Not yet. So, because I'm thinking that way, I'm going to say worse, but it doesn't mean bad, right? Let me be very clear. I'm not saying they're going to have a bad season. They can still have a solid to good season. But you're talking about a season in 2021 in which you won your conference and played in the playoffs. So worse could be winning 10, going 10-2, playing in the Sugar Bowl, right? But Ohio State wins the conference, right? 9-3, playing in the Capital One Bowl or wherever it is, still playing New Year's Six. You finally beat MSU, right? It still can be a successful season, a good season, not successful, but a good season, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'll say worse, but I do believe it will still be a good season for the program.
Well, I think so. Michigan was 12-2, lost to Michigan State, and then lost their playoff game. Essentially, what you're saying is they would have to at least win a playoff game this year. I mean, in order for the year to be better, because I would argue, well, one loss is going to get you in the playoff, especially if you win your conference. Um, so if you're a one loss team, you're gonna get in either way. So I think it's going to be very difficult to win a playoff game. I think it's always difficult. I don't think this year is going to be different than last year. So I would say it will be worse just because of the hill that you have to climb, and
Yeah.
then also it I think you're still going to have to slay the giant like you slayed it last year with Ohio State. I think they're going to be motivated to, I mean, more so than they've ever been, just because you look at the success they've had recently in the rivalry, and they've still been motivated with that. But I think, being the team that lost that streak and you lost to Michigan, I think they're going to be absolutely dialed in. The game's going to be at home, if I'm not mistaken. So you're going to be, in Columbus.
Yeah.
Um, it's not going to be easy. And but at the same time too, you look at it, if you're undefeated and your only loss is to Ohio State, you're probably going to get in, because at that point you'd have to be what, at worst case
Number
probably
one.
number two, number one in the country.
Yeah,
You
you've
know what I
been
mean?
top
Like
dog.
I mean at that point.
Can
So
I say something? I gotta
sure.
say something. I'm getting very, very uncomfortable with this trend versus Mel Tucker. And I'm just saying, like as good as I can't lie, I'll be lying if I said, man. And look, last year was magical. It was fantastic, but I still do have a sour taste in my mouth from losing against MSU again. I do, especially the way the game went. Being up, multiple possessions.
Hmm.
You have the fumble, not fumble, right? And losing the way we did. I mean, and it's the fact that Mel Tucker's only been at East Lansing for 2 years. He's already 2-0 versus Harbaugh. That doesn't sit well with me. And like seriously, Des. I mean, like, let's say Michigan goes 10-2, right?
Hmm.
You're looking at it from the outside, you're like, okay, that's a good season. You didn't fall off the table from last year. You go 10-2, but you have 2 losses to Ohio State and MSU, and you go 0-3 versus Mel Tucker. And mind you, the game's in Ann Arbor this year.